we're celebrating the best of San Francisco Pride on KPIX 5 and streaming live on CBSN Bay Area.
Let us celebrate Pride by doing more of the work. It is more urgent than ever. Oakland stands ready to ensure that everyone can love freely who they want to love, express their sexual preference, their gender identity in a way that is not just welcome, but is celebrated. We are proud of our entire LGBTQIA community. Let us celebrate Pride this year by advancing justice and love.
Revolution is here!
There's an absolute connection between Black Lives Matter and Pride because we are each other's. You know, there is no separation between who we are because what affects one affects the other.
Black lives, they matter, yeah.
So as a black gay man, as a black queer person, we are sort of wedged between two columns. One is black homophobia, and the other is white LGBTQ and white mainstream racism.
We can't just be like, okay, Black Lives Matter, but oh wait, not the trans, not the queer. Like, it just doesn't work like that, because then it's hypocritical, because you're mad at the people who are saying all lives matter, and you're mad at the people saying blue lives matter, but you're mad because people are specifically saying trans lives matter. No, you can't pick and choose which Black Lives Matter.
Jewel Gomez is an award-winning author. Joe Hawkins heads up Oakland's first and only LGBT community center. And Kwai J. Johnson, J for short, is a community activist. For them, being black and queer is complex and often challenging.
If I get stopped by the police, they don't ask me if I'm LGBTQ. I'm a black man.
Racism, homophobia, and sexism served up all at once.
Living with and surviving all of the isms that get thrown at you by the dominant culture can be both heartbreaking and simple.
And it's really sad that to think like I'm fighting for the people who may potentially kill me. So my future looks like Black women are protected. Black, queer, trans bodies are protected.
The LGBT community of color is at higher risk for chronic health problems, financial insecurity, and an early death.
In the white community, HIV is something that they feel like they've gained control of, and they're taking a pill to be okay, but that's not the case in the black LGBTQ community. So we have higher rates of suicide, higher rates of youth homelessness, higher rates of homelessness in general.
If our Black women are dying, our mortality, it's ridiculous.
Historically, little credit is given to their contributions in the fight for freedom.
We are discredited, largely discredited for all of this stuff that we did.
We're conscious of the history and the fact that we've done this so many times before.
More than 50 years ago, 3 years before Stonewall, the first historic act of LGBTQ resistance in San Francisco.
Some cop came into Compton's cafeteria and basically started harassing one of the queens that were there, one of the trans women.
The cafeteria, located in the Tenderloin, was a safe haven for trans women, many of color, who were not welcome in the white gay bars. On that night,
she ended up throwing her coffee in his face, and that started a 3 or 4 day riot that took to the streets and took up a large part of the Tenderloin.
As seen in several recent marches, the LGBTQ and Black Lives Matter movements have joined forces. Allies are needed and welcomed. However,
we need to learn cultural humility. Both us and our allies need to learn cultural humility so that we can go into spaces that aren't necessarily our own.
You know, when it comes to white allies, I have been in the military, I have been a CEO before, I've been an executive director, so I know what it's like to have a white employee who has never had a black supervisor, and to tell that white employee, give them an instruction, and them second guess me. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm very sure.
You know, I wouldn't come into your house and start cooking in your kitchen without you telling me to.
Whether silenced, hidden, or censored, the Black queer movement does not want to lose momentum in this latest incarnation in the fight for civil rights.
And I still can't breathe.
I don't want to exist as just Black in one space. I don't want to exist as just a queer in one space. We just want to feel safe.
In San Jose, Kit Doe, KPIX 5.
I'm Ken Bastida.
And I'm Elizabeth Cook, and we are joined by some very familiar faces, Donna Sachet and Michelle Meow. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We are so lucky to have you with us.
Thrilled to be here.
Thanks. That roar you hear behind us is SF Dykes on Bikes. We're told there are over 300 participants this year. This is the 43rd year in a row.
That is amazing.
That they participated in this parade.
That's right.
It is not the San Francisco Pride Parade without the Dykes on Bikes kicking it off. You can never, ever move it. It can never change. That is tradition. That is what we're proud of.
That is so cool because there's scooters, there's Harleys, there's big giant trikes, there's all kinds of motorcycles. And, you know, they're from all over as well. Portland, Oregon, Monterey, California, from as far away, believe it or not, folks, from Australia, New Zealand, even England, they came across the pond. That's how big this event is today.
Yeah, and a lot of legacy. Unfortunately, last year, one of the founding members, Sunny Wolf, passed away, and she started riding with Dykes on Bikes back in 1978. So now we have the SF Board of Directors with the Resistance contingent. We're told there are about 500 participants in this group. Liam Meckham is down on the parade route. Hey, Liam.
Guys, I'm here with Glamda the Fabulous. Glamda, you are resisting someone on your handbag.
It's just somebody, you know.
It's just somebody.
Somebody, you know, insignificant.
I hate to be shallow, but who are you wearing today?
I am wearing Glamda. I'm in my IKEA, actually. These are IKEA bags, Pride bags.
Oh, my word. IKEA bags made into a flawless, fabulous rainbow dress. Glamda, the Fabulous, and the Pride board right here.
What does this mean, this contingent, this resistance contingent? How significant is that?
Well, the resistance contingent was formed by the Board of Directors of San Francisco Pride, and I was part of the group that had formed this, and it was in response to the new administration that had taken over. We started this in 2017, and so once the president was inaugurated, it was formed to protest the administration who has rolled back LGBTQ rights, transgender rights, to be very specific, and banning transgender military members, and also rolling back on even language in federal policies that erase transgender from their rule books, and protect, you know, a lot of LGBTQ families are impacted. LGBTQ people who are part of the immigration ban are impacted. I mean, all of these issues that have impacted our communities, that's why this resistance contingent was formed.
And it really harkens back to the beginning of the parade. It was not just a celebration.
Right.
It was truly a resistance against police brutality, against discrimination, against making us marginalized citizens. So it harkens back to that. I think it's very important to...
Our daughter is with us today. It's her first San Francisco Pride. She's getting the full experience and really loving it.
Well, I have to tell you, I just came here for what the sign says. Mom and Dad give hugs. Just hug it out.
Hug it out.
Oh.
Happy Pride to everybody in the great city of San Francisco. Today we have fun, we celebrate togetherness, we celebrate inclusiveness. This is what San Francisco values are all about. This will be a reflection for the rest of the world to follow. Happy Pride, everybody in San Francisco!
Toyota's 4th of July sales event is here with great summer savings. Celebrate with up to $1,000 cash back on Camry. Hurry in any way you can. Toyota, let's go places.
It was already a growing trend, but the pandemic put it in the fast lane.
People have rediscovered the great outdoors.
Monday at 7, competing for an RV in a red-hot market that's ready to roll.
Oh, it has been just nuts.
One local family's exhaustive search.
Well, you're second on the list, third on the list, fourth on the list.
Monday at 7 on KPIX 5 News. Expect more.
Sometimes they say it might work, it might not work. And so I ask myself the question, like, why even get the vaccine if it can also harm you? For me, it's like taking a 50-50 chance.
Hi, Andrea. Some say that the vaccine is harmful or that it might not work, but that's not true. Millions of people have been vaccinated with no ill effects, and I can tell you that getting the vaccine is far safer than not getting it.
You're sure, right?
Yes.
Blackouts are coming to California.
Dad, fold it like this.
Let me see. You know, Grandma's secret was to pinch it.
What?
And after this past year, it's the last thing we need.
Wait. Oh, no.
With the right technology, we have the power to end blackouts. Ohm Connect is providing Californians with up to 1 million free smart thermostats. Register and get your free smart thermostat at endcablackouts.com.
Every single sober day, I'm thankful I chose Mountain Vista Farm to help.
Mountain Vista Farm is a place where you can find a new life free of alcohol or drugs. Treatment is provided by a team of dedicated people who have the right training and the right experience. Many are in recovery themselves, so they understand and care.
Mountain Vista Farm gave me back my self-respect.
If you or someone you love needs help, call Mountain Vista Farm today.
Summertime is the time to save during Toyota's 4th of July sales event. Right now, get $1,000 cash back on any Corolla. Hurry in any way you can. Toyota, let's go places.
We're celebrating the best of San Francisco Pride on KBCW 44 Cable 12 and streaming live on CBSN Bay Area.
Pride takes many forms, but perhaps none is more moving than the AIDS Memorial Quilt. That quilt weighs an estimated 54 tons. It's made up of more than 50,000 handcrafted panels. Each one commemorates the lives of more than 105,000 people who died of AIDS or a related illness. The founder, Cleve Jones, explains how it all began.
John Quinn, Kirk Bearfield.
Well, the story of the AIDS Memorial Quilt is actually connected to the story of Harvey Milk. Harvey was killed with George Moscone on November 27th, 1978, and there was a massive spontaneous candlelight march down Market Street from the Castro to City Hall that night. And every year since, there's been some kind of commemoration. Flash forward to 1985, and the death toll from the new disease had already hit 1,000 by the fall of 1985. And I, of course, knew a great many of those first to die. The neighborhood I was living in, the Castro, was really very hard hit. And I was struck by the reality of these 1,000 who had died. Almost all of them lived and died within a few blocks of the intersection of Castro and Market. And there was no evidence, and there was no response. And I got obsessed with this idea that we were living at ground zero and the toll was invisible. And so I wanted to try to find a way for us to grieve together and also to illustrate the enormity of the crisis and reveal the humanity behind the statistics and try to do so in a way that would compel action from the government. So that night when we marched, I had Harvey's old bullhorn, and we had stacks of poster board and stacks of markers, and I asked people to write down the names of their friends and lovers and colleagues and roommates who had already died. When we left our candles there on the steps of City Hall for Harvey and for George, and then I had everybody go down to UN Plaza, which at that time housed the West Coast Division offices of Reagan's Health and Human Services Division. We'd hidden extension ladders in the shrubbery nearby, and when the cops weren't looking, we climbed up with big rolls of tape and covered the gray stone facade of that building with this patchwork of names. And I thought it looked like some kind of strange quilt. Immediately thought of my grandmother and my great-grandmother and the quilts they'd made back in Bee Ridge, Indiana. And that was the genesis of the idea. I could see it in my head. I could see the National Mall in Washington covered with fabric of all different textures and colors sewn together. but nobody else could see it. And they all told me it was the stupidest thing they'd ever heard of. And a whole year and a half went by before we actually got started with it. And during that year, a number of things happened to me that, that happened to me, but they happened to so many people. One was that I tested positive. I learned that I also was infected with HIV. And I went public with that diagnosis on 60 Minutes. And partly as a consequence of that, I was attacked by neo-Nazis in Sacramento and very badly beaten and stabbed and left to die in the gutter. And while I was recovering from that attack, I learned that my very dearest friend in the world, Marvin Feldman, was dying at his parents' home in Providence, Rhode Island. And I have to say, at that point, with all those things happening, my heart was just filled with fear and despair and hatred. And I made the first quilt in honor of Marvin, and it was displayed for the first time after he passed. And I'm very grateful because the quilt replaced fear and despair and hate with hope and courage and love. It connected me to all the good people out there who were willing to fight AIDS and who understood the importance of listening to the scientists and to base their decisions on science and compassion. And those two were never in conflict. And it strikes me that that's a lesson we didn't perhaps learn as well as we should have. When I look back all these decades later, I think I understand even more clearly now how much the quilt contributed to changing the hearts and minds of the American people and the way they viewed not only AIDS, but the way they looked at their gay sons and daughters. I think it had a profound impact.
After 3 decades in Atlanta, the quilt is finally back in the Bay Area. It's a new home at the National AIDS Memorial in Golden Gate Park.
Men, lesbians, and transgender people took part in the city's first Gay Liberation March in June of 1970. But as KPIX5's Betty Yu tells us, the rainbow flag didn't appear until almost a decade later.
Go to any pride parade and you'll see it everywhere. It's the symbol of freedom for the LGBTQ community.
We have civil rights. And let them understand what our civil rights are.
In the early 70s, pioneering gay rights activist Harvey Milk moved to the Castro District in San Francisco.
We are people like everyone else.
Also in the advocate Cleve Jones, his roommate and best friend, an artist named Gilbert Baker.
Well, I thought he was crazy. He had these big eyes and big ideas and big hair and big dresses.
He was this hippie drag queen activist that was fearless.
Gilbert was a true artist. And we forget that a lot of people in the early part of the movement were really geniuses in the art of political theater.
Have to be there to open up for the dialogue.
In 1977, Milk became the first openly gay elected official in the state of California, a San Francisco supervisor. Before the 1978 Gay Freedom Day took place, Milk turned to Gilbert.
Harvey and a few other people just implored him, saying, "You're an artist. We need a new symbol. We need a new symbol. This pink triangle is just too much of a downer."
The pink triangle, which of course came out of the Nazi death camps.
Gilbert took up the challenge.
I remember him sketching out these very dramatic drawings of these rainbow flags that were to fly at the 2 giant flagpoles at United Nations Plaza.
First flags he does are all hand dyed. He buys the fabric for 99 cents on Mission Street at the cheap fabric store.
Fellow artist Mark Rennie. At first,
I hated the rainbow flag. I really did. I said it's too bright, it's too tacky. I was very much art world, right? And Gilbert said, "No, you're wrong. It's got to be bright. It's got to be some bam in their face." And you know what? Gilbert was absolutely right. It was brilliant. The rainbow flag was brilliant.
A team of friends jumped into action. Former SF supervisor Jeff Sheehy.
They dyed mounds and mounds of tie-dyed cloth in the colors of the flag and stitched together.
Early morning on the day of the parade.
And I helped him hoist them up the pole and was there with him when the wind took them.
And these things are just going. I go, oh my God, this is insane. They were just like,
tens of thousands of people marched beneath them on their way to Civic Center Plaza, and you could just see how people were looking up and their faces would light up, and you knew that people understood this was now our symbol.
And it was spectacular, and it blew people's minds.
Gilbert spread the rainbow flag near and far, from the mile-long flag carried by volunteers during a pride parade in New York to presenting one to President Obama at the White House.
I mean, that's the point of a rainbow. It's all the colors. And that's what we are. We're all the colors. We're all the genders. We're all the ages, all the races.
Gilbert devoted his entire life to making these enormous flags and giving them away to communities all around the world.
He passed away 4 years ago.
As Gilbert liked to say and was famously quoted once, you can't design a flag, a real flag.
Charlie Beal runs the Gilbert Baker Foundation. He says when you see a rainbow flag, try to remember the battle is far from
where they're fighting and struggling just to put a rainbow carry-out flag out in a parade. So even in the United States, there are small towns where people are afraid to show that they're gay or afraid to put out a flag. And putting out that flag is an act of courage.
In San Francisco, Betty Yu, KPIX 5.
Pride is one of the largest celebrations of the LGBTQ community anywhere in the world. Included in the mix, a younger generation full of ideas and hope.
Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot.
From the riots to the rainbow flag, this year Pride turns 51.
So what do these 5 decades mean to a younger crowd fighting for the same freedom?
50 years ago and now. And like, I don't face persecution on an everyday basis, and I thank my queer ancestors for that.
Why Pride started was because of the Stonewall riots, and that was led by Black and brown trans women. And I feel like in the last 50 years, that's been forgotten.
Part of me is happy that 50 years, that's something to celebrate, that's amazing, but also sad that like 50 years, really? We have to fight every single year for like basic human rights?
Certain things have changed a lot, but like primarily the things that have changed benefit those who are already privileged in other ways.
You know, Pride is one thing, and then after it's done, people go back to their regular lives. I don't think that there is a returning back to normal.
In the 60s, the revolution was televised during an evening news hour. Now it's a swipe or click on a digital device any time of the day.
The world at our fingertips.
They now have access to so much more information that can liberate them.
The internet was how I found the word bisexual. It was how I came to know that there was like even this like community that I could be a part of.
The battle is far from over, and the to-do list is growing.
Some people who are focusing a lot on stuff like the right for marriage or like inheritance or being able to serve in the military or something, and then we don't have housing or like healthcare, or like we're being criminalized for various things.
For me, the future looks like Black women are protected. They're, you know, they're seen, they're heard, they're given a platform. They're not demonized, they're not criminalized. We literally are flowers that don't get watered. And that's not fair.
As for the future, these young people all have plans to make the world a better place.
To try and pioneer some sort of medication where you could take testosterone orally, which isn't an option at the moment.
For me as a scientist and as a geneticist and as a Black woman, like I want to pursue pediatrics because I know that that's an important area in which we are affected.
I want to be part of the activist network and then hopefully to work in policy and creating change at local and national levels.
I'm hopeful for the future.
In San Francisco, Maria Medina, KPIX 5.
Well, Decolonizing Sexuality is about the recognition of American Indian First Nation people.
There is an incredible joy that comes with attending Pride. So Pride, to me, is a remembrance that the work that my ancestors did to fight for my freedom, to fight for your freedom, was worth it.
I love Pride in San Francisco. It is pure magic. The colors, the glitter, the beautiful people everywhere, the smiles, the love just emanating from the crowd. There's nothing like it. There's also plenty of nudity if you've been to one of these celebrations. Really frowned upon when it comes to live broadcasts. Could get a huge fine from the FCC. But I convinced my executive producer one year when I was interviewing people along the parade route to go out on a limb with me. We were going to do this safely. Now, photographers, when you're working with them, they're trained to follow the action, generally go where you tell them to go, and it's all happening very quickly live. Now, there's one time when you don't necessarily want to go with that flow, and it's when you're doing an interview with somebody who represents the body freedom movement. Check it out.
I am here with all of Dallas Blanchard because he's naked.
Hello. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Tell freedom body lovers, what is it like to walk down the street like this in front of hundreds of thousands of people naked?
Oh, well, I've been a long-time nudist, so it's not all that weird for me, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah,
I can't do this at home.
Absolutely not. You're from Fresno.
Yes.
Views are a little more conservative there.
Yes, it is.
So what is the feeling to be in San Francisco like this?
It's all about freedom and, you know.
And luckily, it's a nice, warm, sunny day.
Yeah.
All right.
It could.
Let me not have my cameraman pan down, and I will grab the flower for Dallas. Have a wonderful time.
Crisis averted there, but Dallas was a very good sport. So I wish everybody a very happy Pride this year, and however you're celebrating, make sure you keep a really good grip on that carnation.
Pride Month is such an opportunity to honor the people who have really fought, right, for our right to live an authentic life, to live and be respected and be given the dignity that we deserve. I think it's, the way that we celebrate it is by honoring those people, by honoring those ancestors, and really reminding our broader Latino community to stay engaged with LGBT issues, right? To remind everyone that our well-being is very interconnected, and that as Latinos, we will never be fully healthy and well if our LGBT community isn't healthy and well as well. So I think it's such an important time to just remember how connected we are.
I'm Chris Holleran. I'm one of the founders of Queer Life Space. Queer Life Space is a nonprofit counseling agency that seeks to bring sustainable, evidence-based mental health and substance management services to the LGBTQI+ community. The significant lack of access to affordable mental health care has long been a struggle in this country. This is especially evident within the queer community. Queer people often struggle with increased rates of suicide, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, trauma, and loss of familial support. It's more crucial than ever to offer these essential mental health services to the breadth of diverse individuals that compose the queer community in the Bay Area. Our entire purpose is to provide an affordable open door for those struggling with these challenges.
It's always so overwhelming when you get to walk down Market Street because we are still of acceptance from family. And even though my family has struggled to accept me, just being in that crowd and seeing the love from the crowd come back has always been amazing to me. So it's just an honor to represent PFLAG and, that acceptance of what family can so be.
A couple years ago, after my son had passed away 3 days prior, that's how I celebrated him. We carried little signs of, with, Marcus, we accept you, that sort of thing. And, there was a lot of partying going on, a lot of love, a lot of hugging, and just people just generally being safe, being who they were. And a lot of people approached me saying, who's Marcus? Tell us about Marcus. We were holding his face on a stick and that sort of thing, and just kind of like being there, celebrating his presence and his life. And tell us about Marcus. and I would tell them the story. And, you know, a lot of people approached us, you know, and, you know, because everyone's feeling very good vibes. Hey, you know, is he not aware he's gay? Tell us all about it, right? You know, that sort of thing. And then I would tell him the story about how he committed suicide just prior to that weekend. And everyone had a story that was that deep. Everyone had someone who had done something tragic in their life and had experienced something in their life, a first lover, a friend, another family member. There is a lot of revelry at Pride, and I learned that the love that's being expressed at Pride is an evolved love that's beyond a slim definition of expectation that this society that we you know, have been, you know, living in forever. I really sensed it that time. Everyone had shared their story. Everyone shared their love. Everyone shared their love for Marcus. And that's what I think. That's what Pride is: being proud of who we are, and the definition of love that we have. That is what I think Pride is.
Toyota's 4th of July sales event is on. Now get $750 cash back on RAV4, Venza, Highlander, CHR, and Camry. Hurry in any way you can. Toyota, let's go places.
There are those who will say that you're too fat, too skinny, too hard, too soft, too old, too much, too unexpected, too limited. And to them we say, too bad. Because at Kaiser Permanente, we believe that everyone deserves the right to thrive.
S&G saves you 1, 2, free. With 1 lifetime installation warranty, 2 ways to shop, at home or in their showrooms, plus free take-home samples and free estimates. And during S&G's June renewal sale, renew your home with new flooring and save up to 30%. 30% off select carpet, hardwood, laminate, and waterproof core will make your home look new again.
S&G, more than carpet.
Go to sgcarpet.com for the showroom nearest you or to have their mobile showroom come to you.
Funny thing happened this year. My sales team went remote, leaving everyone feeling a little. But my sales team got through it with Gong. Thanks to Gong, I know when a deal's going south. Gong even shows us what our top reps are doing. So now the whole team's doing it. That means more coffee for more closers. Grow your revenue with Gong.
Toyota's 4th of July sales event is on now with $750 cash back on Venza or $4,500 cash back on Prius Prime. Hurry in any way you can. Toyota, let's go places.
We're celebrating the best of San Francisco Pride on KPIX 5 and streaming live on CBSN Bay Area.
See, we have people from all over the place here. Yeah. I love it.
And you see people kind of all ages, too.
Yeah.
You see young, old. We've seen a lot of students. You see a lot of young people there. You know, Jackie Ward spoke to one author who is making it her mission to educate students on LGBTQ history. And she shows us game changers, lesbians, you should know. Now we have the Treasure Island Job Corps Center. 30 participants here.
Job Corps is a federally funded vocational and academic training program for low-income youth ages 16 to 24. It's a residential facility serving 532 students from around the Bay Area.
Oh, a cool-looking tiki bar.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
But they have a little party going on.
Yes.
And some more union people. UFCW Union
Airlines.
5. Very cool.
Oh, get into her mind, girl, yes. All right, we got United Airlines coming up on us.
Market Street is the best runway
Yes, it
in
is.
the world today,
Yes,
right?
it is.
It is the runway.
It's the only
They are serving
runway.
it.
And bro, you performed. You performed at the Pride Parade. What was that like?
Oh my god. Well, it was a while ago, so I was a little bit younger, just a little bit. And I have to tell you, for any of the girls out there performing, like your feet, I'm going to pray for your feet by the end of this that you are okay, because my feet were never okay at the end of performing for the parade. But
I don't even know how to protect your feet from all that.
I don't think I knew either, because it didn't happen.
So with United Airlines coming up right now, do we go alphabetically? Are we almost at the end?
No,
not at all.
More
Many
more. They are the world's third largest airline when measured by revenue, after American Airlines and Delta Airlines. We know them well at SFO, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, more confetti.
Yes. Confetti.
You have to be covered in confetti after an event like this. It's just a requirement, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to put some glitter on this morning, so I would have blended right in.
You have to. You have to.
I like those flight bags they're carrying. United Airlines flight bag, very cool.
They've got little goodies in there. This is Swanabox, the Southwest Asian and North African Bay Area Queers. The group was founded in 2000 as a support group and currently has more than 300 members from across the Bay Area.
I love the giant tapestry flag they
Pretty
have.
cool.
Beautiful.
So many different countries.
I've always wanted to be carried across on one of those big flags.
It's great to see the bisexual community out today, the LGBT. It's important for the bi community to be represented. This organization's been serving the community for 31 years, going back to the early 70s.
And they include not just the bi, but the pansexual community as well.
Now, explain that for viewers who might not understand what that is.
Pansexual is probably someone who can be attracted to any one of the four of us up here.
So it's any flavor works.
Any flavor.
Okay.
Any.
And we love them
Equal
for that.
opportunity.
Right.
The SF Lgbt Center in San Francisco. It is a hub for all manner of activities, a community center for people to gather. An important day for you to be here today, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Liam. It's Happy Pride, everyone. We are just so proud that over the last 17 years, we're creating a stronger and healthier community, and so excited to be out here.
And love that you are out here, but the need to support this community could not be greater today, could it?
Yeah, I mean, we stand on the shoulders of so many people that have come in our movement over the last 50 plus years, and the future is going to be brighter because all of us are here together, celebrating our identities, our culture, and really thinking about a more brighter and just world for all of us. So,
and aren't we blessed to be right here at this moment in time?
We really are. San Francisco is such a special place, and we're so proud to have a robust community center where we can all come together and connect with one another. Who we are as a community.
Well, thank you for serving the city and our LGBTQ community in the way that you do. Love you guys much.
All right, with the whip scroll. Peter, you gonna try out for you gonna go out there and
try out for everything else.
Always a challenge when it comes to the camera work, when but it works.
We have SF Leather Pride making its way down Market Street, and we are going to go out to Liam Makelum.
Absolutely, the leather community always showing up fully and strong in the Pride Parade. This year, what's it about for you guys?
It's about just being proud and out and letting people know that we're here and we want to share with others that it's okay to be yourself no matter gender, sex, orientation you are part of our leather, kink, and fetish community. And we have members of all those likes here in our contingent today.
And just to show that I'm part of your community, I have a little piece of leather on.
Awesome.
There it is. Are we brothers?
Leather pride.
Wonderful. Yes. Let's march.
This is This is Oka. They have 100 participants.
Looks like they're making their own
company.
They're making their own movie, and I want to be on it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wave. Hi, Oka. Hi, Oka.
Ken's never met a camera he didn't like.
There you go.
Oh, they've told me that too.
I'm with Patch O'Fur. Patch, what's your message today?
Well, I'm here with the NorCal Furries, and we're just saying that you can be whatever you want to be, and that's what we're here for.
And your contingent today, where's everybody from?
We're mostly from NorCal, but we are a worldwide fandom.
Is this your first Pride, or have you done this for many, many years?
We have been doing this since around 2002.
Well, we thank you for showing up today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hot is it inside that costume?
Oh, right now, the weather is actually pretty nice. It's breezy. You know, we're doing pretty good, I think. We have little leaf blowers to blow some air in your face if you really need it. Yeah. We're all equipped.
And you've got a big tail you can wag to cool yourself down.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. All about being who you are and being fully expressed at San Francisco Pride. And that's why I'm hanging with the furries.
Be careful for those fur balls, though, Liam. Don't get a fur ball now.
You know, it's not too bad in the dog head, but that lion's head, that's a hot one. That one warms up.
But people suffer for this parade. I love it.
There you go.
I've never seen a parade this big.
I haven't either.
Maybe the Macy's Thanksgiving thing, but even that is not this long.
Yeah, no, it's pretty remarkable. And I think what makes it amazing, too, is that you see so many people in the parade. In addition to the folks watching the parade, there's almost more people in the parade wanting to be a part of it.
Right.
Hi, I'm Darcy Drollinger from OA. Pride!
Sister Roma, my friend, it's great.
Happy Pride, Liam. I'm amazing. It's so nice to see you. You look like you're living it up there at the lake. How lovely.
Favorite times of the year, a little different this year. But to kick off, Roma, what is Pride about to you?
Well, Pride is such a beautiful experience, and I have a very long history with Pride. I actually came to San Francisco for the very first time in 1984, my junior year in college, in June, and I stumbled on the SF Pride Parade. Never in my life had I seen anything like it. And when I saw 1 million people marching from down Market Street to the steps of City Hall, I knew I had to live here. So the next year I packed up, graduated from college, and moved to San Francisco. And 25 years after that, I became Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade.
Incredible. What a journey you've had. You are such an important part of the fabric of our community, Roma. When it comes to showing up, there's no one who shows up more than you. I know it because wherever I go, I see you. And then you're going on to a second, third event in one night. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Tell our friends watching, what are the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence all about?
Right here in San Francisco in 1979, we just celebrated. And after a couple of years when HIV and AIDS started to ravage our community, the sisters really found their purpose. And we're the first group ever to produce a safer sex pamphlet called Playfair, the first group to hold a fund for sick and dying and needed money. And basically, we've taken up almost every cause you can imagine since then. Anti-violence, Black Lives Matter, women's breast cancer. Now on 4 continents. The world.
Roma, you're global. You're global.
We're global. And every community where you'll find a sister, you will find people who are working and they're doing their best to serve the community where they live.
Thanks for joining us for the best of Pride. Before we go, we leave you with some more highlights from over.
us, it means the world to us, basically.
I can't even tell you what it means and how it feels.
It's just to march with these ladies. It's just